Everyone told you the same thing. Avoidants do not commit. They pull away. They disappear. They choose their walls over you every single time. And after watching it happen enough times, most people believe it. They stop trying. They write the whole attachment style off as a dead end and move on. But what if that story is only half true? What if avoidants do not stay closed because they cannot open up, but because nobody around them has ever made opening up feel genuinely safe? Because here is the thing nobody is saying out loud. Avoidants commit every single day. Just not to everyone. Not randomly. Not because someone loved them hard enough or waited long enough. They commit to a very specific kind of person who does a very specific set of things. And once you understand what those things actually are, the entire dynamic stops being a mystery and starts making complete sense. Before we get into what those things are, you need to understand something important about how an avoidance nervous system actually works. Because without this piece, nothing else on this list will make sense. Avoidants do not stay guarded because they are broken or cold or incapable of love. Research on adult attachment is very clear about this. They stay guarded because their nervous system was trained, very early in life, to associate closeness with loss. Not loss in the dramatic sense, but the slow, quiet kind. The loss of their space, the loss of their sense of self, the loss of control over their own inner world. At some point, usually in childhood, showing emotional needs did not bring comfort. It brought discomfort, pressure, or silence. So their brain made a very logical decision. It learned to convert vulnerability into distance. It learned that staying slightly out of reach was safer than being fully seen. And that system has been running ever since. Quietly, automatically, in every relationship they enter, their nervous system is already scanning for the moment when closeness starts costing them something. And the second it finds evidence that cost is coming, the walls go up and the distance grows. So the question is not how do you convince an avoidant to open up. The question is how do you become the person their nervous system stops reading as a threat. And that is exactly what the super empath does, without forcing it, without performing it, and in most cases without even fully realizing the effect they are having. Most people who fall for avoidance carry a quiet agenda into the relationship. They may not say it out loud. They may not even consciously know it is there. But underneath their patience and their love is a belief that goes something like this. If I just do the right things, eventually they will open up and become the partner I need them to be. And the avoidant feels that agenda immediately. It does not register as love to them. It registers as pressure wearing a softer mask. It makes them feel like a project, like the person in front of them is not actually interested in who they are right now, but only in who they might eventually become. The super empath does not carry that agenda. They show up with real curiosity about who the avoidant is today. They ask questions because they are genuinely interested, not because they are looking for a way in. They accept what the avoidant shares without immediately pushing for more. And to someone whose nervous system has spent years bracing for the weight of someone else's expectations, that kind of presence is genuinely disorienting. It feels like space. It feels like room to actually breathe inside a relationship. And in that space, something the avoidant almost never experiences starts to grow. Real comfort. The super empath does not make the avoidant the center of their world. They have their own friendships, their own ambitions, their own routines and interests that they keep showing up for no matter where things stand in the relationship. And this is not a strategy. This is not manufactured distance designed to create interest. It is simply the truth of who they are. They are a complete person before a relationship, and they stay a complete person inside it. For the avoidant, this is one of the most quietly powerful experiences they can have, because the fear that drives avoidant behavior is not really a fear of love. It is a fear of what love will take from them. On some level, they are always waiting for closeness to start costing them their independence, their solitude, their sense of self. When the super empath's fullness makes it undeniably clear that this relationship is not going to ask them to disappear into it, something shifts. The avoidant stops scanning for the exit, not because they were talked out of it, but because for the first time, the exit does not feel necessary. This one is the most overlooked thing on this entire list, and it might be the most important. When the super empath is hurt, anxious, or going through something hard, They do not quietly place that weight on the avoidant and wait for them to make it better. They have done enough real work on themselves that they can sit with a difficult feeling, move through it, and come back to the relationship without needing the avoidant to have saved them in the middle of it. This is not emotional unavailability. They feel things deeply. That is a core part of who they are. But they do not confuse feeling deeply with needing the other person to manage what they feel. And for the avoidant, that difference changes everything. One of the fastest ways to make an avoidant pull back is to make them feel slowly responsible for your emotional state. That feeling, to their nervous system, does not register as closeness. It registers as a weight that only gets heavier over time. When the super empath consistently removes that weight from the equation, the avoidance defenses begin to lower in a way that no amount of reassurance or patience from the outside could ever force. The super empath says no. They push back. They name what does not work for them. And they do it calmly, directly, and without spiraling into punishment or silence afterward. Most people dealing with avoidance land in one of two places. They either swallow everything they need to avoid rocking the boat, or they hold it all in until it comes out all at once in a way that confirms every fear the avoidant already had about what closeness looks like. The super empath does neither. When something is not right, they say so, and then they let it go and move forward. They do not bring it back up. They do not go cold. They do not turn one difficult conversation into a referendum on the entire relationship. For the avoidant, watching someone do this is genuinely surprising, because deep down they have always believed that real intimacy means constant emotional exposure and constant risk of losing ground. The super empath's ability to hold a limit without losing their stability is quiet, but powerful proof that this belief is not actually true. And that proof, shown consistently over time, starts to make commitment feel less like a trap and more like something real. And then there is the fifth thing. And this one is different from everything else on this list, because this is not really a behavior. It is not a skill. It is not something you can learn in a week or practice until it feels natural. This is something the super empath has built inside themselves over years of real growth, and it is the single most powerful thing they bring into a relationship with an avoidant. They are the same person every time. Not perfect, not without their own doubts and hard days, but fundamentally, consistently, recognizably the same. They do not flood the avoidant with warmth one week and disappear the next. They do not test. They do not manufacture drama to see how much the avoidant cares. They do not rewrite the rules of the relationship based on how anxious or insecure they are feeling on a given day. They show up steady, and they keep showing up steady for long enough that the avoidant's nervous system begins to do something it almost never does with another person. It stops waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is the part that most people completely underestimate. Avoidant attachment is not, at its core, about not wanting love. It is about a nervous system that learned it was never safe to fully relax around another person. Every previous relationship, even the good ones, eventually produced enough unpredictability that the defenses had no choice but to come back up. The super empath's consistency does not give those defenses a reason to return. And somewhere, without a single dramatic moment, without a big conversation or a grand gesture, something changes in the avoidant. They realize, quietly and completely, that this person is not going to do what everyone else did. And from that realization, for the first time, real commitment does not feel like a risk. It feels like the most obvious next step. That is the brutal and beautiful truth of this entire dynamic. The avoidant was never the problem. The absence of consistent safety was the problem. And the super empath, simply by being who they already are, solves it without ever trying to. If you are reading this and recognizing yourself, either as the super empath who has always shown up this way without fully understanding the effect it has, or as the avoidant who finally felt safe with someone and could not figure out why that person felt so different, I want you to know something. None of this makes you complicated. None of this makes the people in your life broken or unlovable. It makes you human. These patterns were not chosen. They were built in environments where they made complete sense at the time. And anything that was built can, with the right conditions and enough honesty, be rebuilt differently. The avoidant who has never committed is not someone who does not want a real relationship, They are someone whose nervous system has not yet been given enough consistent evidence that a real relationship is safe to have. And the super empath, without performing anything or pretending to be anything other than what they already are, is the person most capable of providing exactly that evidence. Now I want to hear from you. Have you seen this play out in your own life? Have you been the one showing up consistently for an avoidant and wondering why it felt so hard? Or maybe you are the avoidant who finally let someone in and only now understands why that person got through when nobody else could. Drop it in the comments. What you share might be the exact thing someone else needs to read today. And if this gave you something real, something that actually shifted the way you understand this dynamic, subscribe. Because next week we are going to what happens inside the avoidant the moment they realize they are actually falling for someone. Why that moment is so much more fragile than it looks from the outside, and what it means if you are the person they are falling for. That is a video you will not want to miss.